Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and you see someone's Instagram story. They're at some beachfront property talking about how they finally hit their number, whatever that means, and now they're financially free. You close the app and think, well, that's not me. I'll never get there. I'm probably doing this all wrong anyway. But here's what I'm curious about. Do you actually know what that even is? Do you know what number you're actually chasing? Because most people, and I mean most people, don't. They just keep moving the goalposts and wondering why they never feel rich even when they objectively are. I'm Ron, and I spend way too much time thinking about financial psychology and why smart people make terrible money decisions. If you're someone who feels like you should be further along financially than you are, or you're not even sure what further along actually looks like, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you figure things out. Because trust me, by the end of this video, your relationship with money is going to shift dramatically. Here's the thing. There's this massive assumption we all walk around with, and nobody really questions it. We assume that more money equals more security, and that more security equals happiness. Sounds logical, right? Except, and this is where it gets really interesting, the data doesn't support that at all. Look, I'm not going to give you some bullshit self-help answer like money can't buy happiness. Obviously, money matters. Money is literally a tool that lets you not die and experience things. But what I'm talking about is the relationship between the amount of money you have and the amount of peace you feel. And I'm telling you, after a certain point, those two things completely decouple. Let me throw some numbers at you. According to research from Vanguard, and I'm using Vanguard because they actually study their customers' portfolios, the average American thinks they need about $1.9 million to feel financially secure. Now pause on that. $1.9 million. That's their number. But here's what's crazy. People with $5 million also think they need more money. People with $10 million are still worried. This isn't a poverty issue. This isn't someone struggling to pay rent. These are wealthy people by every objective measure, and they're still anxious. Why? I'll tell you why. It's because nobody, and I mean nobody, actually teaches you how to calculate what you need. You just inherit some vague idea from society that says a lot. So you keep running on a treadmill that has no finish line, and you're always 2 steps away from where you think you need to be. Now you might be thinking, okay, Ron, so what? I should just be happy with nothing? That's not realistic either. And you're absolutely right, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's a specific number based on your life, your expenses, your actual reality that will genuinely create security. Not imaginary security, real security. And once you know that number, something magical happens. You can actually measure progress. You can actually relax. You can actually make intentional decisions instead of just grinding forever. So let's talk about what most people don't realize. The wealth number everyone's been fed is fundamentally broken. It usually comes down to something like the 4% rule or the 25x your expenses thing, which by the way, I'll get into in a second. But the problem is that 99% of people use these formulas in the worst possible way. Let me give you an example. Say you make $100,000 a year. You hear about the 25x rule, so you think, okay, I need $2.5 million to be safe. $2.5 million. That sounds impossible, right? So you just give up. You don't even try because the number's so absurd it might as well be Mars. You go get a coffee, spend $7 on it, and then wonder why you're not building wealth. This is the trap. Here's what actually happens. Most people don't need anywhere near what they think they need because they're calculating based on their current spending, not their retirement spending. Big difference. Your retirement spending and your accumulation phase spending are not the same thing, like not even close. Let me break this down with real numbers. Let's say you're 35 years old and you make $120,000 a year. You probably spend, let's say $80,000 a year. You're banking $40,000. But here's the thing, that $40,000 you're saving, that's being taken out of your gross income. You're not choosing that, it's just happening. So your actual lifestyle is based on $80,000 a year in spending. Now, when you retire, you don't need $80,000 in spending anymore for a bunch of reasons. You're not saving, you have no work expenses, gas, clothes, coffee runs, the mental health therapy you need because your job is stressful. You own your home, maybe, your kids are older, you're not spending on childcare. You don't have the behavioral spending that happens when you're stressed about work. This is where it gets really interesting. Most people, when they actually track their retirement spending, spend 30 to 40% less than they thought they would. 30 to 40%? That's a massive difference in the wealth number you need. But wait, there's more. Most financial advisors will tell you that you need to account for inflation and healthcare costs, which is smart, but they don't tell you the other side of that equation. You can actually get more efficient in retirement. You can move to a lower cost of living area, you can optimize your tax situation, you can stop paying for things that don't matter to you. These aren't luxuries, these are mathematical advantages that actually exist. Okay, so here's what you actually need to do, and I'm going to walk you through this step by step because this is the move that changes everything. Step 1. Get honest about your actual retirement spending, not your current spending, not what you think you'll spend, what you'll actually spend. The way you do this is you get a month where everything's normal, not a vacation month, not a month with car repair, just a regular month, and you track everything. I mean everything. Coffee, groceries, gas, rent or mortgage, insurance, all of it. Write it down. Let's say, and I'm just using realistic numbers here, that month comes to $5,800. Okay, that's your baseline. Now multiply that by 12. You get $69,600 a year. That's a real number. That's based on your actual life, not some arbitrary formula. Step 2, account for the stuff that's going to change. Your mortgage will be paid off, hopefully. That's a huge one. If your mortgage is $1,500 a month, boom, that's $18,000 back in your pocket every year. So now you're not at $69,600, you're at $51,600. Your income taxes might go down because you're not working, state taxes might change if you move, healthcare costs will probably go up, but they might not go up as much as you think. Medicare exists, you can plan around it. Let's say, being realistic, your actual retirement spending is around $55,000. Not $120,000, not $150,000, $55,000. Step 3, this is the important part, you take that number and you multiply it by 25. The 4% rule says that if you have 25 times your annual spending in investments, you can safely withdraw 4% of that portfolio per year and not run out of money. Over 30 years, over 40 years, over your entire retirement. This is based on historical market returns and is pretty well tested. $55,000 times 25 equals $1.375 million. That's your number. That's the wealth you actually need in 2026. Now I know what you're thinking. Ron, that's still a lot of money. And yeah, it is. It's not easy, but here's the thing. It's not impossible either. It's not $2.5 million. It's not $5 million. It's $1.375 million. That's achievable. That's real. And here's the psychological shift that happens when you know this number. Everything changes. You know why? Because now you're not chasing infinity, you're chasing a real target. You can do math. You can say, okay, I'm at $300,000 right now. I need $1.375 million. I have $1.075 million to go. At my current savings rate of $40,000 a year, I'll get there in about 27 years. And now you can actually ask yourself, is that okay with me? Do I want to accelerate it? Do I want to change my target? These are real decisions. But wait, there's more. Because most people, when they actually see a real number, start making different choices. They start asking themselves, do I actually need that thing? They start being intentional instead of just spending automatically. Let me give you another angle on this. What if I told you that a huge portion of people are already there, or closer than they think? Let me explain. According to Federal Reserve data from 2023, the median household net worth is about $192,000. The average, not median, but average, is closer to $750,000, which is skewed by the ultra-wealthy. But here's what's wild. If you're 45 years old, have your house paid down somewhat, and have a 401k or some retirement accounts, you might already have $400,000 to $600,000 in investable assets combined, With Social Security, which people always forget about, that might be 60 to 70% of the way there already. And here's where the psychology gets really interesting. Social Security. Most people treat Social Security like it's not real money. They plan like it doesn't exist. But if you're 35 now and you'll retire at 67, you're going to get on average about $1,850 in today's dollars from Social Security. That's $22,200 a year. That's a third of our $55,000 retirement number right there. It's guaranteed, it's indexed to inflation, it's real. So now your math changes. You don't need $1.375 million to fund $55,000 a year. You need $1.375 million to fund $32,800 a year, because Social Security is already covering $22,200. That means you actually only need about $820,000 in invested assets. $820,000. For a lot of people reading this, and especially if you're younger, that's not a fantasy number. That's something you could realistically hit by 50 or 55. That's real. But here's where most financial advice completely misses the point. Okay? Having the money and feeling secure are two different things, and I'm going to explain why, because this is actually the more important part. You've probably noticed that money feels different at different times in your life, right? When you had your first job and made $25,000 a year, an extra $5,000 was huge. It meant something. It changed your life. You could take a vacation or buy something nice. But when you made $100,000 and then got a $5,000 raise, you barely noticed. It just kind of disappeared into your account. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it's one of the most important concepts in financial psychology that literally nobody talks about. Your brain adapts to your wealth level really, really quickly. Usually within 6 to 12 months, whatever new amount of money you have just feels like normal. You're not happier, you're not less anxious, you're just normal again. This is why someone with $5 million is still worried. Their brain has adapted. They've moved goalposts. They're comparing themselves to the people with $10 million. And this isn't their fault. It's literally how human brains work. But here's the move. Here's what actually works. You have to interrupt this cycle intentionally. And the way you do that is you create a real number, you hit that number, and then, and this is the key, you actually stop and acknowledge it. You actually pause and think, wow, I did it. I have security. I can stop here if I want. Most people never do this. They hit their number and they're like, cool, but what about this number? And they keep running. They never actually experience the relief, the peace, the security that was the whole point of building wealth in the first place. Let me tell you what actually happens when you do this right. I've seen this with clients and I've experienced it myself. When you know you have enough, and I mean really know it, like you can do the math and see it, your relationship with money shifts. You stop thinking about survival. You start thinking about optimization. You stop being anxious about spending. You start being intentional. You're actually freer, not because you have more money, but because you have clarity. And here's the sneaky part that nobody tells you. Once you hit your number, you actually tend to make better decisions anyway. You don't panic buy things, you don't make desperate career moves, you negotiate better because you're not desperate. And funny enough, this usually leads to you making more money anyway. You become more successful because you're not scared. Now, let me address the room here because I know some of you are thinking different things. First, there's the person thinking, my situation is different. My expenses are way higher. Okay, sure. Maybe you live in San Francisco. Maybe you have special needs. Maybe your number is higher. That's fine. But the methodology doesn't change. You still do the calculation, you still get a real number, and you still hit it. Yes, your number might be $2 million instead of $1.4 million, but that's not an excuse to give up and spend $200,000 a year because you feel like it. It's still a target you can measure against. Second, there's the person thinking, but what about inflation? What about emergencies? What about this or that? Look, I get it, but here's the thing. The 4% rule accounts for inflation. It's based on historical data that includes recessions, inflation spikes, all of it. And the reason it works is because the stock market on average returns more than 4% plus inflation. There's a buffer built in. You're not walking a tightrope. You have actual margin for error. Third, but Ron, what if I want to retire early? What if I want to retire at 55? Okay, that's actually a really good question. This is where your number might change because if you're retiring early, you might need more runway of investment growth before you can pull 4% safely. But actually, there's a hack here. A lot of people do what's called the Roth ladder or the 5-year rule, where they take some money out of their 401k early, use a strategy to avoid the penalty, and bridge the gap until they're 59.5 and can pull freely. It's a real strategy that works. But the point is, these are real problems with real solutions. The reason I'm bringing them up is because once you know your number, you can actually start solving for these variables instead of just guessing. So here's what I want you to do today, right now, or tonight, or whenever you have a quiet 30 minutes. Step 1, track your actual spending for a month. 1 month. Get a real number. Don't estimate, track it. Step 2, adjust that number for retirement. What changes? What goes away? What increases? Be honest. Step 3, multiply by 25. That's your number. Step 4, calculate your Social Security benefit. Go to ssa.gov, create an account, see what you're actually going to get. Most people are surprised it's actually pretty substantial. Step 5, subtract that annual Social Security number from your annual spending need, then multiply by 25. That's the investment portfolio you actually need. Step 6, figure out where you are now. How much do you actually have invested? Net worth minus house, roughly. Step 7, do the math. How many years until you get there at your current savings rate? Can you accelerate it? Do you want to? That's it, 7 steps. You do this, and suddenly you have clarity. You have a real target. You can make actual decisions. And here's the thing. I'm guessing that for a lot of you watching this, that number is going to be less scary than you thought. Not because you're going to be rich, just because when you do the actual math instead of the imaginary math, it becomes human-sized. It becomes achievable. You don't need to be rich. You need to be intentional. You need to know what enough actually means for you, and you need to be willing to stop at enough instead of keep running forever. That's how wealth actually works. That's how security actually works. If this video helped you think differently about money, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're ready to actually know your number, go do the work. Do those 7 steps. Your future self will thank you. I'll see you in the next one.